Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 152, cover dated December 1981. The cover is by Bob McLeod and it's penciled and inked by him, and he also is using an interesting craft technique from the period, and that is duotone. So you can see it here on Storm, but this is actually the White Queen, on her cloak and clothing here. So you've got this dark to light grey effect. So it's from duotone, a very particular craft technique from the period, and it looks pretty good on the cover. So the cover here, it's a bit confusing because there isn't a cover caption to explain what's going on. This is Storm's body possessed by the White Queen. This is the White Queen, but Storm's psyche or mind is in that particular body. Also a little bit confusing that Emma's hair is colored silver just like Storm's. Would have been better if it were colored blonde, which is what it should be, to help identify who exactly she is. I don't think it's the best composed cover in the world, but it's not too bad. One criticism I have when I was looking at it earlier is the length of Storm's right leg. That is super long. That is well out of proportion, and also the tininess of Emma's hand here as well. So let's get past the cover and get to the splash page, because the splash page is excellent. I love everything about this splash page. The sports car there in the foreground racing along, Storm up here and lashing at it with lightning. So the title of the story is Hellfire Gambit. Chris Claremont is writer. This is part 2 of a 2-part story. Bob McLeod is the guest penciler. Dave Cockrum will return in the subsequent issue, in the next issue upcoming. Josef Rubinstein is inker, Janice Chang letterer, and Don Warfield colorist. So we have a little catch up on what's going on here, explaining that this isn't Storm, that it's Emma Frost in Storm's body. But really that is a tremendous splash page. I like everything about it. Let's continue though into the issue itself. And we have, picking up from the end of the previous issue, Storm in Emma's body has grabbed Kitty Pryde from the Massachusetts Institute, and they're making their way to Westchester County to the X-Mansion. And Kitty's waking up here from the Cybolt that Storm launched at her. Storm in Emma Frost's body has access to her mutant telepathic power, but she's got no training, no control over it, and the best she can do is remember what her friend Jean Grey ever said about telepathic power and using like how she used it. So that's as much training as Storm has in terms of being able to use Emma's mutant power. So Kitty comes to from the Cybolt at the end of the previous issue. She's shocked to see Emma driving the car, phases out the side of the car in panic and all the way out, and then Storm loses control of the car and shoots out over the edge of this cliffside. This is a really nice sequence here from McLeod, where you've got Emma in Storm's body, and she's horrified because of course she's hoping that in the future she's going to be able to return her mind and psyche to her original body. But this is a nice storytelling sequence from McLeod here, with the car tumbling down the side of the cliff's edge, and then exploding at the bottom. And you get to see like Storm's body there reacting and flying away from the fireball from the explosion. So Emma thinks to herself, I'm burning, what should I do? I've got to get away, a wind, also a wind to blow me to safety. Her need hyped by pain, as much imagined as real, an atavistic terror, she reaches out with her mind and in a split second warps local weather patterns sufficiently to generate whoosh, a jet stream, a blast of super fast air that scoops her up and whirls her helplessly away. So the way that Claremont is treating the two women in the two different bodies with access to the mutant powers that they haven't been trained in is they just don't have complete control over those powers at all whatsoever. So what's happened here? Kitty on instinct, phased, tumbling down the side of the cliff's edge, and she comes to with her part of herself like phased through this particular rock. And she thinks, and this is typical Claremont of the period, where all the characters are wondering about how their powers might be used in a fashion if they weren't concentrating to destruction, to self-destruction. She's there thinking, I wonder what would happen if I solidified inside something. Could I even do it? I think I'd rather not know. And then, because every issue was somebody's first in the Jim Shooter editorial or editor-in-chief era, we get a series of flashbacks here, 6 panels flashing back to the main events of the previous story, bringing us right up to the present moment of this particular issue. And it's interesting seeing that panel there. I think McLeod, he was either copying or tracing for this particular panel here. So, but Josef Rubinstein has re-inked it. So it's not a photocopy, but perhaps McLeod traced the pencils on that. And then we have Kitty's horrified reaction to the burning car. She sees Emma Frost's body thrown clear of the car, and now she faces a moral dilemma here. And so she's thinking she must have been thrown out of the car too. She's lying on the edge of the fire. If I don't pull her away from there fast, she'll probably die. So what? She probably deserves it. She's a crook. She'd do anything to harm the X-Men. Why should I risk my life for her? Yeah, but I'm supposed to be a hero. I'm supposed to be better than her. But if I save her, she could use her telepathic powers to take me prisoner again and maybe capture Aurora as well. What should I do? The fire's getting worse, one way or the other. I've got to decide now. So what decision does she make? Well, we get a little cutaway to the X-Mansion, and Emma in Storm's body flies there. The X-Mansion is in darkness. She flies into Storm's attic, where you've got all of Storm's plants in her attic from this era. This is a really nice page. This page is well drawn, I think. And she's deeply upset by the fact that Storm drove the car off the cliff's edge and is presumably dead. And so Emma's basically concerned that she's never going to get back into her original body. But who's there in the attic waiting for her except for Sebastian Shaw? Because this whole scheme is won by the Hellfire Club to get revenge on the X-Men and to take the X-Men down. So Shaw basically says it's not the worst thing for her to be trapped in Storm's body. And this is a bit hokey here, but again, it goes back to that Jim Shooter era where Shaw says something that Emma knows very well. You use that persona exchange gun, there it is there, she's throwing it into the chair, the wicker chair, to switch your consciousness with Storm's so that you could then infiltrate the X-Men and destroy them from within. Why on earth is he saying that to her? Of course she knows that, but it's not for her, it's for the benefit of the reader. But it's a little bit hokey. In any case, Shaw continues and says, the device functioned perfectly. If you wish, the process could be repeated with someone else. True, you're no longer a telepath, but you still possess beauty, youth, the power of a goddess. If you ask me, I think Aurora would make an exquisite white queen. And then he kisses her. So that's pretty interesting. Like, it's pretty weird stuff going on in this two-parter with the mind exchange into the different bodies. But it's something of Claremont's overarching themes, like the enslavement of a body, or the corruption of a body and soul switches, all of that. It's something that he's interested in, and he's playing around with it again here in this two-parter. So then we're back upstate in a drain tunnel, the end of it, and we've got Kitty who's tied up, as she sees it, Emma Frost. But of course, this is Emma with Storm's mind inside, and so she's able to free herself from the knot that she was had her hands tied behind her back. And Kitty thinks, Aurora taught me that knot. She said it was foolproof for anyone but her, yet Miss Frost untied it easily. Maybe she's telling the truth. I'll go along with her, but I won't trust her. As far as I'm concerned, she's guilty till proven innocent. So Kitty did save her from the fire, and now she's beginning to wonder if indeed it is Storm in the White Queen's body. And then we switch back to the X-Mansion, and we've got all of the X-Men lined up there on the sofa. We've got Amanda Sefton too. Keep an eye on her for the rest of the issue. We've got the Hellfire Club security team, and also these new guys, well, apparently new in these red costumes, and we'll discover who they are shortly. And we've got Harry Leyland as well there, and he's got a particular thirst for payback from Wolverine for the events of Uncanny X-Men 133. So then the X-Men are surprised to see Storm arrive wearing the White Queen's costume. And Storm, Emma Frost says here, wickedly, I merely decided this time was ripe to learn how the other half lives. And you know what, my friends? I like it. So Wolverine here is enraged by this apparent betrayal of Storm, and Leyland grabs him and says, "You've a big mouth, Wolverine. It's time someone taught you proper manners." And Harry Leyland is just the man to do it, but he gets kneed in the unmentionables, and Wolverine asks him rhetorically, "You and who else, Tubbo?" That's quite good. But now we find out who these guys are. Who are they? Since you asked, Shorty, us, it's been a while since we met beneath the Hellfire Club, fella. You cut me and my men up pretty good. We might have died, but we didn't. Now we got powers and strength to match your own, and tonight we're going to use them to pay you back for what you did with interest. So the reference is to Uncanny X-Men 133, which opened with Wolverine apparently slashing fatally a number of Hellfire Club security. But the reveal here now is that they didn't die, but they've been rebuilt as bionic men, as cyborgs. And this all goes back to Jim Shooter. This is Jim Shooter's request of Claremont that we couldn't actually see Wolverine kill so indiscriminately like that. So we're having this, it's kind of sort of a retcon, but rather like a reveal that those Hellfire Club mercenaries weren't killed by Wolverine. And again, as I said, it goes back to Jim Shooter as editor, the demand to do that. So Professor X here is begging Shaw to show some humanity regarding Wolverine, and Shaw basically says, regarding Wolverine, forget him, X-Men, his fate is sealed. As for the rest of you, as soon as my technos have finished looting Xavier's databanks, you'll all be transported to a Hellfire Club installation, where you'll be our guests for the rest of your natural lives. And Nightcrawler thinks, gloat away, Herr Shaw. You may think us helpless, but we're not. We possess an asset you're completely unaware of. And who or what could that be? Well, it's Amanda Sefton, because of course the Hellfire Club has no information about Amanda, and they think that she is simply an ordinary human, when she's not. She's a demon sorceress. So then we pick up, and this is interesting, Stevie Hunter, who is Kitty Pryde's dance teacher, and Storm used Emma Frost's telepathy to call out to Stevie Hunter to meet them. And then we've got this little moment here where Kitty's, they're a mile away from the X-Mansion. They're trying to get there covertly. Kitty looks out to see whether there's anybody around or not, and Storm is incensed by her foolhardiness, and Kitty responds to the upbraiding, thinking, wow, that's a Storm riff if I ever heard one. No one could be that good of an actress. I'm beginning to believe her. So she's coming around to believing that indeed Storm is in the White Queen's body. And we get a little bit of characterization here that goes back to issue 149, where Claremont was establishing that Storm is somewhat jealous of Kitty's relationship with Stevie Hunter. So Storm thinks here, Stevie's an extraordinary person. I'm proud to call her my friend, yet I'm still jealous of that bond between them, between Kitty and Stevie. Possessing Emma Frost's telepathic talent and being able to sense their thoughts and emotions only makes things worse. It's unfair to Stevie, unworthy of me, yet I can't help myself. I've come to think of Kitty as my own child. I resent having to share her. So that's interesting characterization on Claremont's part, making these relationships among the characters rich and complex. But then we're back to the action part of the story. So who finds Stevie there except for Sebastian Shaw and the White Queen in Storm's body? And the White Queen demands that Stevie explain what she's doing there, recognizes her too. So in the danger room, here's Wolverine getting a beating from those Hellfire Club mercenaries. We get a name for one of them too, which is Cole. So he's the leader. So Wolverine addresses him by name. Cole, you talk to flaming much. And Wolverine launches himself at Harry Leyland. But Leyland is a mutant with the power he's got absolute power over the mass of both things and people. So he increases Wolverine's mass, doubling it, tripling it, and Wolverine conks out, and maybe he's dead. That's what Leyland says to the X-Men who've been watching the beating on telescreen. He says the little man was something of a disappointment. I'd hoped to prolong his agony for days. Let his death be a lesson to you, X-Men. Step out of line and you'll suffer the same fate. So that really was a sadistic treatment of Wolverine. And Colossus there is aghast, and he thinks to himself, sleep well, Tavarish, you'll be avenged. And in the meantime, Amanda Sefton is working on, with these magenta lines around her, working on a spell. She's tracing the tiniest mystic signals in the air, her movements masked by the bodies of her fellow prisoners, while whispering ancient words of power. As far as she is concerned, all is going to plan. So maybe Wolverine's death isn't true. We'll find out later in the issue. Then we're back to a mile away. We've got Storm and Kitty. And this is interesting. Kitty's phased through the ground into the underground hangar complex beneath the grounds of Professor Xavier's estate. But the hatch door is locked. So Storm uses Emma's telepathy to create a psionic rapport with Kitty and help her with the lockpicking here of the emergency release mechanism for the hatch. But just as she's working away there, she's surprised by Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw, who are out roaming around the grounds and who've obviously got information from Stevie regarding whom she brought to the grounds of the X-Mansion in her car. But just at that moment, Kitty's successful unpicking the lock on the system for releasing the hatch door. So Storm jumps down, and then Kitty hits the emergency close mechanism, and Emma and Sebastian are stuck up top. But Sebastian's got a plan. Return to the mansion, Emma, he says. Take the unconscious Miss Hunter with you. Warn the others. I'll deal with this problem. So they must have knocked out Stevie. Before you go, strike me with a lightning bolt. Now this is interesting because this is Sebastian Shaw's mutant power. My mutant metabolism will absorb its kinetic energy, which should give me more than sufficient strength to rip this hatch out of the ground. And we've got an interesting screen tone there on the lower side, or the lower half of his face as well, with most of the front of his face in shadow there. It's an interesting little use of screen tone there. Over here as well on the shade on Emma's face, will Storm as Emma's face there with the hat. And then we're back to the story. This is a nice page. I think McLeod does a good job with Wolverine. So Kitty phases into the mansion portion of the estate, and just as she's sneaking around, she's grabbed by a gloved hand, and of course it's Wolverine. He tells her to shush, and she says, but I heard a guard say you'd been killed. And he says to her as she hugs him, funny, I heard some bozo make the same crack about you. So Wolverine says, they're getting set to ship the X-Men out, Kitty. We got no time for anything fancy, so listen up. Here's what you're going to do. Another interesting use of screen tone there on that portion, the yellow portion of Wolverine's mask. Let's continue. So of course we don't learn what Wolverine's plan is. We're going to have to see it develop, and we're coming to the third act now of the story. So the plan was to have Kitty phase up to where the X-Men are being held, phase through the inhibitor, the electromagnetic locks on their inhibitor collars, releasing them, because that's what her phasing power does. When she phases through electronic machinery, she disrupts it. So now they're all free. Leyland uses his power on them, but Colossus says that ploy might be effective against my friend's villain, but in my armored form, I'm not to be held easily. So with but a thought, Colossus transmutes his body from flesh and blood to super strong organic steel, and easily snapping his bonds, strikes. Before Harry Leyland can recover, Nightcrawler teleports on top of him, and Nightcrawler says to him, you may increase my mass all you wish, Herr Leyland. Of course, considering where I am, that might be the brightest of moves. So he starts punching him in the face. This is for Wolverine swine, because of course they don't know that Wolverine's still alive, but they'll soon discover that he is, because here he is arriving, and he slashes Cole's rifle in two, gets him right up against the wall. And what's he going to do with those pop claws? Is he going to kill him a second time, so to speak? And Cole says, go ahead, crazy man, gut me, you'll be doing me a mercy. All me and my partners lived for was seeing you dead, Wolverine. If we can't have that, it's better to die ourselves. Why? Wolverine asks, because I cut you months ago, at the time you were trying to kill me, remember? And Cole says, yeah, and because of what you did, They made us freaks, part human, but mostly machine. Wolverine's response is interesting. By the way, he looks too tall there in that drawing and here as well. Is that all? Man, you're pathetic, he says. So what if you're bionic? There are worse fates. You're alive, Cole, a thinking, breathing, feeling human being, or at least you're supposed to be. Artificial parts, mechanical limbs, can't take that essential humanity away, just as flesh and blood can't give it to you. I could grant your wish, bub, but I won't. You aren't worth the effort. So he lets him live, but he's broken him. But he'll come across these guys again in the future, and most, for my money anyway, most memorably in Uncanny X-Men 205, Wounded Wolf, with Lady Deathstrike as well. So Shaw arrives in, busting through the wall with the White Queen in Storm's body, and we get an interesting layout here, kind of a Neil Adams layout, these diagonal layouts for the panels. We'll see that again from McLeod in a couple of pages' time. And Cyclops here uses his optic blast to stun Shaw, and then instructs Colossus to throw him into the lake, bargaining, or rather hoping that swimming back to shore is going to use up a lot of Shaw's energy. Then Nightcrawler grabs Storm. Well, it's Emma Frost in Storm's body, but she lashes out at him with her lightning, and then she loses control. It seems to come out of nowhere, smashing through the house like an elemental battering ram, sweeping both combatants and bystanders off their feet, and with the unnatural wind comes rain, a torrential monsoon, and lightning, massive bolts that gouge rough scars in the lawn, splinter aged oaks, strike down a man. So that's Shaw. He's gotten out of the lake, Breakstone Lake. He's running towards the mansion, but he's caught in a massive lightning bolt, and Emma's aghast, and she shouts here aloud, "It isn't possible, he's down, he isn't moving, no power on earth could do that." And Storm thinks, as I feared, the White Queen's indiscriminate use of my abilities has triggered a wild weather effect. The bolt that struck Shaw filled him with more raw energy than his system could assimilate. The overload has either stunned or slain him. So now Storm uses Emma's powers to create a psionic rapport with Emma in Storm's body, and says, "Stop fighting me. Let me into your mind. I've been one with the wind since I was born. Let me guide you. Trust me, Frost. It's our only hope." So will Frost acquiesce? Now here we go. This is the Neil Adams style layout again. These kind of diagonal panels, very interesting from McLeod. So now this is like the climax of the issue. We get it in the narrations there. A spear of fire punches through both women's brains, accompanied by a sickening sense of disorientation as a gust of wind swirls them high into the air. Thunder rumbles across the land. Lightning explodes before their eyes. Rain chills them to the marrow. But slowly, gradually, Aurora reduces the tempest to a semblance of normalcy. So this exactly is our scene from the front cover. That battle over, another begins. Aurora has the persona exchange module. There it is. Existence and location picked from the White Queen's thoughts during their scuffle in the forest. She means to use it. The White Queen means to stop her at any cost. So what is the outcome? The X-Men are wondering whether, like, who's who in terms of Emma falling from the sky. But it turns out the exchange, the persona exchange, worked, and Storm's back in her proper body, and she's angry. So Emma Frost says, "You wield your powers with consummate skill, but so do I. I know your mind as well as I know my own. You cannot resist my telepathic assault." And Storm responds, "Once, O Majesty of Evil, that may have been so, but no longer." Lashes her with a lightning bolt. And here we get a call back to Uncanny X-Men 148, when Storm went kind of Amiga level in her powers. And so she's ripping off her clothes here with the lightning playing around her body. And Kitty's worried. She says to the professor, "I'm frightened she doesn't look human. She's like a real goddess." Same thing happened at the end of Uncanny X-Men 148. So what's Claremont up to here? Is he kind of implying, as he did then, that Storm's level of power could, like, put her on the level of, you know, almost somebody like Dark Phoenix in some regards? Will she be able to control herself? Is she going to do something wicked here and kill Emma Frost? And this is really interesting. As she's about to, like, apparently kill Emma, you'll pay for that in blood, she says as she grabs Emma by the throat. Who intervenes except for Wolverine, the guy you'd least expect to give a speech now about not killing? Stand aside, Wolverine, says Storm, enraged, and Wolverine says to her, and watch you destroy yourself, not flaming lightly. Anyone can kill, Princess, he says. It's easy, I know. What takes courage and strength, what separates the humans from the animals, is not killing. Some people are warriors, born to kill. That's me. And some exist to show us there's a better way. That's you. There's so much beauty in you, it'd be a shame to spoil it for the likes of her. So, this is our last panel. And Storm, wrapped in a towel, says, it's strange hearing such philosophy from your lips, my friend, but your point is well taken. And Kitty asks, will I call the police? No. We cannot expose the Hellfire Club, says Storm, without exposing ourselves, but neither can they expose us. In our mutual fear of discovery lies mutual safety. Is that not so, Emma? And Frost says, I'll keep silent. You have my word. The inner circle. And this is weird. The secret evil heart of the Hellfire Club. Really, we need that evil part deleted at this point. This is Silver Age for Emma to say evil heart of the Hellfire Club. If you knock that out and just have the secret heart of the Hellfire Club, that's much better for my taste. In any case, she continues, is nothing without Shaw until he recovers. If he recovers, you've nothing to fear from us. And Kitty Pryde, you want the brat, says Emma, to the victor go the spoils. So Kitty's not going to have to be a student at the Massachusetts Academy. But Emma thinks to herself privately, and this is typical Claremont, like nothing's ever ended. She thinks, but I swear, Wind Rider, with all my heart and soul, that though we've lost this battle, the war between us shall not end until the X-Men are both dead and damned. So there you go. Next up, Cochran returns with the zaniest, farthest out, most heartrending story of the year. Join us once upon a time in 30 days for Kitty's fairy tale. Personally speaking, I think we've had a bit much of Kitty Pryde. I would have liked, after a two-parter that's fairly focused on Kitty Pryde, something a bit different, a focus on a different X-Man. But at this point in time, Kitty is the 13-year-old newest X-Man. She's the point of view character for new readers, and maybe again this is an editorial thing, or maybe it's coming from Claremont. Maybe he's enjoying writing the character, this teenage girl, and her perspective. Personally, as I said though, I'd like focus on somebody else in the next issue, but it is what it is. No letters page here. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on part 2 of the two-part storyline, Uncanny X-Men 152. Let me know your thoughts on this particular issue. Let me know your thoughts on Bob McLeod's art. Were you a fan? He would shortly be involved in the launch of New Mutants, penciling the first few issues of that particular series. Let me know your thoughts on his art. And if you enjoyed my video, please like it in YouTube. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.